Eleanor Grayson sat at her kitchen table, her hands steady despite the tremor that had crept into them over the past decade. At 70, her silver hair was pulled into a neat bun, and her eyes, sharp as ever, scanned the ledger before her. The numbers were her old friends, predictable, reliable, unlike the world that seemed to shift under her feet. She'd balanced her accounts since she was a young widow, raising her daughter, Lila, on a teacher's salary. Every penny had been accounted for, every decision deliberate. But Lila didn't see it that way. "You're too old to handle this, Mom," Lila had said 6 months ago. Her voice clipped, standing in this very kitchen. She was 40, her dark hair streaked with premature gray, her face taut with the stress of her struggling boutique. "You need to let me take over your finances. You're making mistakes." Eleanor had laughed, a dry sound that hid the sting. Mistakes. She'd caught Lila's error in the boutique's tax filings last year, saving her thousands. But Lila's words lingered, a quiet wound. Eleanor had raised her to be independent, to chase dreams. But somewhere along the way, Lila had decided her mother was frail, incapable. The accusation hung between them, unspoken but heavy. As Eleanor continued her routine, coffee at dawn, ledger by noon, and a walk through the garden where she'd once taught Lila to name every flower. The phone rang, shattering the silence. Eleanor's heart quickened not from fear, but from instinct. Lila's name flashed on the screen. She answered, her voice calm but guarded. "Lila, everything okay?" "Mom, I need to talk to you. It's urgent." Lila's tone was frayed, not the usual brisk confidence. "Can I come over?" Eleanor glanced at her ledger, the neat columns a testament to her control. "Of course, sweetheart. I'm here." An hour later, Lila arrived, her coat damp from the autumn rain. She looked smaller than Eleanor remembered, her shoulders hunched, her eyes avoiding contact. They sat across from each other, the table a quiet barrier. Lila fidgeted, her fingers twisting the edge of her scarf. "Mom, I'm in trouble," she said finally, her voice barely above a whisper. "The boutique, it's failing. I can't pay the vendors. The rent's overdue, and the bank won't extend my loan. I need help." Eleanor's chest tightened, not from surprise, but from the weight of her daughter's vulnerability. She'd seen the signs: Lila's late-night calls, her distracted visits. But hearing it aloud was different. "How much do you need?" Eleanor asked, her tone steady. Lila hesitated, then named a figure that made Eleanor's breath catch. $50,000. More than Lila knew her mother had, or so she thought. Eleanor's savings, carefully built over decades, were a closely guarded secret, even from her daughter. Lila had always assumed Eleanor lived modestly, scraping by on her pension. She didn't know about the investments, the small rental property, the discipline that had turned a widow's meager income into a quiet fortune. "I don't have that kind of money lying around," Eleanor said, testing the waters. She wanted to hear Lila's reasoning, to understand how far this rift between them had grown. Lila's face crumpled, a mix of shame and desperation. "Mom, I wouldn't ask if I had another choice. I've tried everything. If I lose the boutique, I lose everything I've built." Eleanor leaned back, her mind racing. She could help easily. But Lila's words from months ago echoed, "You're too old to handle this." The irony wasn't lost on her. She wanted to help her daughter, but she also wanted Lila to see her, truly see her, not as a frail old woman, but as the capable one who'd always been there. "Let me think about it," Eleanor said, her voice gentle but firm. "Come back tomorrow." Lila nodded, her eyes glistening. As she left, Eleanor returned to her ledger, but her thoughts were elsewhere. She wasn't just weighing numbers. She was weighing trust, pride, and the fragile bond between mother and daughter. The rain tapped against the window, a rhythm as steady as her resolve. That night, Eleanor couldn't sleep. The house was too quiet, the kind of silence that amplified memories. She remembered Lila at 5, clutching her hand as they walked to the bank. Eleanor explaining how to save $1 a week. She remembered Lila at 20, beaming with pride when she opened her boutique. A dream born from years of sketching designs on Eleanor's kitchen table. And she remembered the sting of Lila's recent words, the assumption that age had dulled her mind. By morning, Eleanor had a plan not just for the money, but for something deeper. She called her financial advisor, a gruff man named Harold who'd managed her investments for years. I need to liquidate some assets, she told him. Quickly, but quietly. Harold didn't question her. He knew better. You sure about this, Eleanor? That's a big chunk. I'm sure, she said, her voice unwavering. She wasn't just giving Lila money. She was giving her a chance to rebuild trust, to see her mother anew. When Lila returned, the kitchen smelled of fresh coffee and cinnamon rolls, Eleanor's way of softening hard conversations. Lila looked worse than yesterday, her eyes red-rimmed, her hands trembling as she accepted a mug. Have you thought about it? She asked, her voice small. Eleanor nodded, sliding a folder across the table. I can give you the $50,000. But there's a condition. Lila's eyes widened, a mix of hope and wariness. What condition? I want to see your books, Eleanor said. Every expense, every sale, every debt. If I'm investing in your business, I'm not just handing over cash. I'm partnering with you. Lila blinked, caught off guard. Mom, you don't. I can handle it. I just need the money. Eleanor's gaze was steady, unyielding. You said I couldn't manage my own money. Now you're asking for it. If you want my help, you let me in completely. The air grew thick with tension. Lila's pride warred with her desperation, her fingers tightening around the mug. Finally, she nodded. Okay, I'll bring the books tomorrow. For the next week, Eleanor immersed herself in Lila's world. The boutique's records were a mess: overdue invoices, miscalculated margins, and a loan with a punishing interest rate. Eleanor didn't lecture. She worked. She taught Lila to renegotiate with vendors, to streamline inventory, to cut costs without sacrificing quality. It was grueling, but Eleanor felt alive, her mind sharp, her purpose clear. Lila watched, at first skeptical, then awestruck, as her mother's expertise unfolded. One evening, as they pored over spreadsheets, Lila paused. How do you know all this? Mom, I thought you were just getting by. Eleanor smiled, a quiet triumph. I've been managing my money since before you were born. Lila, I made mistakes, learned from them, and kept going. You don't survive on a teacher's salary without learning a few tricks. Lila's face softened, a flicker of guilt in her eyes. I didn't know, she whispered. I'm sorry. Eleanor reached for her hand. You don't need to be sorry. Just don't underestimate me again. The boutique began to stabilize, but the work wasn't done. Eleanor's $50,000 was a lifeline, not a cure. Lila's business needed more than money, it needed a new vision. Eleanor saw potential where Lila saw failure, a loyal customer base, a unique brand, a story worth telling. She pushed Lila to think bigger, to market the boutique as a community hub, not just a store. They spent late nights redesigning the shop's layout, creating a cozy corner for local artisans to showcase their work. Eleanor suggested hosting workshop sewing classes, design talks that could draw crowds and build loyalty. Lila, hesitant at first, began to see the spark in her mother's ideas. You're good at this, she admitted one night, her voice tinged with admiration. Eleanor chuckled. I've been solving problems longer than you've been alive. But not every moment was easy. Lila's pride still flared, especially when Eleanor corrected her math or questioned a decision. One afternoon, they clashed over a marketing budget. "You're acting like I don't know my own business." Lila snapped. Her face flushed. Eleanor stayed calm, her voice low. "I'm not here to take over, Lila. I'm here to help you keep it." The argument fizzled as quickly as it started, but it left a mark. Eleanor knew trust was a fragile thing, rebuilt slowly, one honest moment at a time. She didn't push. She guided, letting Lila find her own way while offering the wisdom of her years. As weeks turned to months, the boutique's numbers improved. Customers returned, drawn by the new energy, the sense of community. Lila's confidence grew, but so did her reliance on Eleanor. One evening, as they closed the shop, Lila turned to her mother. "I couldn't have done this without you," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "I was wrong about you." Eleanor's heart swelled, but she kept her tone light. "You weren't entirely wrong. I'm old. But old doesn't mean useless." They laughed, the sound easing the tension of months. For the first time in years, Eleanor felt seen not as a mother to be protected, but as a partner, a force. The boutique wasn't just Lila's anymore. It was theirs, a shared dream stitched together with trust and time. The boutique's revival was a quiet miracle, but Eleanor knew the real work was in mending what had been broken between her and Lila. Their partnership had reshaped their dynamic, but old wounds lingered. Lila's apology had been a start, but trust, once fractured, took time to heal. Eleanor didn't push for grand gestures. She focused on the small one-shared coffee breaks, late-night talks about the future, moments where Lila's guard came down, revealing the daughter Eleanor had missed. One morning, Lila arrived with a surprise, a leather-bound ledger, its pages blank. "For you," she said, a shy smile on her face. "I figured you could teach me how to keep one like yours." Eleanor's throat tightened. It was more than a gift. It was an acknowledgement of her skill, her strength. They sat together, Eleanor guiding Lila through the basics, their laughter filling the kitchen. It felt like old times, but better equals, not just mother and daughter. The boutique's success brought new challenges. A local competitor tried to undercut their prices, and Lila panicked, her old fears resurfacing. Eleanor stepped in, calm as ever, suggesting a loyalty program to keep customers coming back. "You don't fight dirty," she told Lila. "You fight smart." Lila listened, her trust in Eleanor now instinctive. The program worked, drawing crowds and boosting sales. The boutique became a local staple, its story of revival spreading through word of mouth. Eleanor watched Lila bloom confident, creative, the woman she'd always known her daughter could be. But Eleanor wasn't immune to doubt. Late at night, she wondered if she'd given too much, risked too much. Her savings were depleted, her safety net thinner. Yet, seeing Lila thrive, she felt no regret. This was her legacy, not just the money, but the lessons, the resilience she'd passed on. One evening, Lila invited Eleanor to a community event at the boutique. The shop was packed, the air buzzing with excitement. Lila took the microphone, her voice steady. "I want to thank someone special," she said, her eyes finding Eleanor's. "My mom, who believed in me when I didn't believe in myself." The crowd applauded, but Eleanor barely heard it. Lila's words were enough, a balm for every doubt, every hurt. They hugged, the embrace warm and unguarded, a promise of new beginnings. Months later, the boutique was thriving, a testament to their shared effort. Eleanor took a step back, letting Lila lead. She was proud, not just of the business, but of the woman Lila had become, resilient, resourceful, unafraid to ask for help. Their relationship, once strained, was now a partnership of mutual respect. Eleanor returned to her quiet routines, Her ledger still a daily ritual. But now, Lila often joined her. Their conversations easy, filled with plans for the boutique's future. They dreamed of expanding, maybe opening a second location. Eleanor offered ideas, not as a savior, but as a collaborator. One afternoon, Lila brought a financial advisor to meet Eleanor. "I want you to have someone to lean on, too," Lila said. Eleanor smiled, touched by the gesture. She didn't need the help, but she accepted it, knowing it was Lila's way of showing care. The advisor was impressed, poring over Eleanor's records. "You've built something remarkable," he said. Lila beamed, proud not just of her mother's wealth, but of her wisdom. "She's always been remarkable," Lila replied. Eleanor felt a quiet joy. She'd given Lila more than money, she'd given her the tools to stand on her own. The boutique was a symbol of that, a place where community and creativity flourished. Eleanor walked through it one evening, the lights soft, the air warm with chatter. She saw Lila laughing with a customer, her confidence radiant. This was enough, Eleanor thought. Not the money, not the success, but the bond they'd rebuilt, stronger than ever. She'd proven her strength, not just to Lila, but to herself. Age was just a number. Wisdom was timeless. A year after Lila's plea for help, the boutique was a local legend, its story shared in newspapers and on social media. Eleanor and Lila were a team, their roles fluid, their trust unbreakable. They hosted events, mentored young entrepreneurs, and gave back to the community that had embraced them. Eleanor's life felt fuller now. She still balanced her ledger, but she also taught workshops at the boutique, sharing her financial savvy with others. Lila watched, sometimes teasing, "You're stealing my spotlight, Mom." But her pride was unmistakable. One spring morning, they sat in Eleanor's garden, the flowers Lila had once named blooming brightly. Lila handed Eleanor a letter, her handwriting neat on the envelope. Inside was a thank you, not just for the money, but for everything: patience, wisdom, love. "You didn't just save my business," Lila wrote. "You showed me who you are, and who I could be." Eleanor folded the letter, her eyes misty. She didn't need the words. She saw them in Lila's every action, every shared moment. They'd built more than a business, they'd built a legacy of trust, respect, and love. As the sun set, Eleanor looked at her daughter, now a partner, a friend. "We did good, didn't we?" she said. Lila smiled, her hand finding Eleanor's. "We did great." The garden glowed, a quiet testament to their journey. Eleanor's ledger was balanced, her heart full. She'd proven her worth, not just to Lila, but to the world. And in doing so, she'd found something greater, a daughter who saw her, truly, for the first time.